Maybe you remember that iconic photograph of a little girl running down a wide concrete road, screaming after her body had been burned by napalm. Her name is Kim Phuc, and while the world saw her as a symbol of the Vietnam War, her real story is one of faith, hope, forgiveness, and redemption. On April the 30th, 1975, helicopters hovered desperately above the US Embassy in Saigon as thousands of people scrambled to escape a city descending into chaos. These were the final moments of the Vietnam War, and as the conflict reached its devastating climax, 7,000 people were airlifted to safety. The Fall of Saigon marked a military defeat, but also a shattered dream. Families were literally torn apart as North Vietnamese forces surged into the South's capital, and their red and yellow flag was lowered for the last time.
Tragically, our nation's leadership, while striving for peace, has adopted a course that makes real peace unlikely.
For the United States, the war had divided their nation and challenged its very ideals. More than 60,000 Americans had died. Many more had returned home with life-changing injuries, haunted minds, and broken spirits. For the Vietnamese, the cost was catastrophic. 2 million people had perished, and whole villages were erased from the map. The weak and vulnerable paid the highest price as orphan children were condemned to live their lives in a divided and war-torn land. One of the children caught up in the chaos was 9-year-old Kim Phuc. She was captured on camera in 1972, running down the road with her skin burning. Deadly napalm had been dropped by warplanes as they poured over Vietnam, leaving horrific physical and psychological injuries. The village where Kim lived was just the latest target for that deadly cocktail of gelling agent and gasoline that stuck to anything and anyone that it landed on while it burned. Kim received third-degree burns to more than a third of her body, and after more than a year in hospital and 127 skin grafts, she was finally discharged. But only then did her pain really begin.
The single click of a camera brought us one of the most heartbreaking and horrifying images.
Kim Phuc has experienced what no child should ever have to go through.
That stopped much of the world in its tracks. A painful image that captured the horror.
Feeling, are your burns still bothering you at all?
The cameraman who caught that moment on film would have had no idea that the photograph would go around the world for decades and would become the lasting, iconic symbol of the Vietnam War. But it would condemn Kim to humiliating and unwanted attention as her face and her life was used for propaganda purposes by the Vietnamese government. As the years passed, she began to pursue her dream to study medicine, but the deep physical and emotional scars of her traumatic childhood experience would continually hold her back.
I was so also consumed by anger and bitterness. Why me? Why did I have to suffer like this? I would curse those who had wronged me and ruined my life.
And then in 1982, she stumbled on a Bible in a Saigon library. There she discovered the life of a man and his message. Finally, she had encountered somebody who understood her pain and her suffering and yet lived a life of forgiveness and unconditional love. From that moment, everything changed. This is how Kim described it in her own words.
It wasn't easy, but that day I started my journey of forgiveness together with Jesus.
She began to speak around the world, telling her story with incredible honesty and grace. She told people of her experiences living through the Vietnam War, but always through the lens of forgiveness, healing, and peace. Kim Phuc went on to start a global foundation to care for and support children caught up in the horrors of war. Children who, like her, carried deep scars, both visible and hidden.
If everyone can learn to live with love, with hope and forgiveness, absolutely, we don't need war at all.
Through her remarkable life message, Kim Phuc continues to extend grace to politicians, military personnel, and those directly responsible for the napalm attack on her village in 1972. If I could talk face to face with the pilot of that plane, Kim said, this is what I would say to him: I forgive you. No longer is Kim Phuc the Napalm Girl. She is a wife, a mother, a global advocate for peace, and a devoted follower of Jesus Christ. Today she travels the world telling audiences, the scars are part of my life, but they remind me that God has a plan in everything, and no story is beyond redemption. Kim Phuc's remarkable life and testimony sounds out into a troubled world that love is greater than hate and forgiveness is more powerful than revenge.